Hello, I am here today to tell you why The Bonehunters is the best Malazan book out there, okay? Bonehunters, this is it. This is the list. I don't know if it's a list even, but we're going to talk about some things. There probably will be spoilers. It's book 6 in the Malazan Book of the Fallen, so whatever you're going to have, I don't even know if you check this out anyway, if you didn't expect some spoilers to some degree. So, book number 6 of the Malazan or Malazan, Book of the Fallen. I'm going to stick with one. I've gone back and forth, but I go with Malazan because that's what the audio goes with and what my head went with when I first read this. So, The Bonehunters. This is one of those books. I actually, and this might have helped why I consider this the best book of the Malazan series. First of all, I could be accused of calling any Malazan book that I'm currently reading my favorite Malazan book. There's, at times it's been Memories of Ice. At times it's been Midnight Tides, even Deadhouse Gates, which is definitely a popular one. But right now, since The Bonehunters really is my most recent read, but at the time I remember I had understood The Bonehunters to be kind of the point in the series where you go, oh, this is where it's dropping off in quality. That's what I was told. And that's kind of what I expected. And then when it was the exact opposite, I remember reading my absolute eyes off. I was in law school. I shouldn't have just been reading this, but this is all I wanted to do at the time. And so a lot of things went away, and it was all Malazan all the time. I was just so addicted to this book. So some of the things, just the non-spoiler things to get into, first of all, not that anyone cares by this point. Non-spoiler things, honestly, this is more like 2 books. I know it's 1,200 pages in the mass market paperback. This is my favorite to read. Look at that. Didn't even crack the spine. Yeah. Ask me other tips about random things that probably don't matter because it's a mass market paperback. But didn't crack the spine. But anyway, it's 2 books, and the beauty of it being essentially 2 books is that it has 2 ginormous climaxes. One of the best chapters, I will argue, that has ever been written, ever been put to paper, is chapter 7, Egatan. There's so much insanity going on, and that's about halfway through the book. I mean, not even, what is it? Chapter 7 is that bad boy. That sucker is what? Little over 100 pages, like 120 pages in the mass market paperback. And look at that. It's, starts on page 325. You already get this insane climactic scene, and then you get more later on. So that's one of this book, and that's what I already sing Erickson's praises because of his epic climaxes at the end of these books. They're some of the best I've ever read. And usually, I grew up reading fantasy. We're talking, maybe it's the last 100 pages that kind of get some things going. And Brandon Sanderson definitely has some of this, especially in the Stormlight Archive with his Sanderlanche that he does. But in my book, nobody tops Erickson because of his are like 250 pages. I remember just some of these start, you're going, oh my gosh, this insane climactic scene is already starting and we haven't even gotten close. So you get 2 epic scenes in this for the price of one, and I'm like, there's more than that, sorry, but 2 epic, huge climaxes for the price of one in one book. It is insane. Not to mention, and especially, the reread definitely helped kind of solidify this book. But I remember my first read I was so into this, and I remember even at that time thinking, did this just become my favorite book of the series? I thought it was going to be Memories of Ice forever and ever. But then I remember rereading Deadhouse Gates not too long ago and going, did this just become my favorite in the series? I didn't love Deadhouse Gates like everyone else did when I first read it, but after having read it again, I think I was just so emotionally damaged reading it that it really affected me in ways that I wasn't prepared for, and so that might have a lot to do with it. Having been prepared for that, I knew what was coming a little bit. I was ready for it, I think, and then it's, anyway, one of my favorites. But this is about the Bone Hunters. All right, Bone Hunters. Bone Hunters, we're talking literally, a lot of people are putting forth, one of the longest chapters ever is in, what is it, A Memory of Light, the last book in the Wheel of Time. I'm not going to take away too much from that because that was an excellent, hugely long, crazy chapter, but Egatan still beats it for me. There's just so much going on, so much insanity. There's so much we learn about the world in this book. This is where we get into a little more of, so along also the line of the no spoiler section here, I'm a sucker for a band, a group, close-knit, whatever it may be. Give me the quartet in the Dark Tower. Give me the five in the Wheel of Time, really. You just get really close to them and want them to keep meeting up and hanging out. The hockey movie Miracle comes to mind, especially with this, when the Bone Hunters actually form up and become a thing of themselves, and that they are dedicated and loyal to themselves. That is just huge, especially with Ferdinand Sort being just a total jerk. But also, again, and people say Erickson can't do characters, but then she comes back and redeems herself. So anyway, there's just so much going on. Going more into heavier spoilers here. You get a huge look into Quick Ben's past, and that's worth it. How he's got all this mastery of different Warrens and souls, and what is going on with this guy? He's so mysterious this whole time. You just know you definitely want him around in a pinch. So he's like the only one that can get you out of it in the craziest ways. But he's also got plans within plans within plans, and so you just never know what he's thinking, where he's going with things, or what his ultimate plan or goal is. It's nuts. So I want to learn more about Quick Ben. Boom, you get this. One of the things I still remember reading the whole series and being like, I vaguely know the difference between like what an ascendant is versus what a god is. But it literally tells you, it literally explains and goes into like an ascendant, more of an immortal kind of being that's reached kind of the top of his or her game. And a god has worshipers, has more to it, and kind of needs that to kind of power them in a way. We learned a ton more about Calanved and Dancer. Learned kind of what some of their goals were. The fact that they're trying to learn and get through the pathways of the Azath and try to master them and map them and kind of gain, really, I mean, an Azath that can hold hugely powerful beings and multiples of them. I mean, what kind of power is there? And so you see, it's like it's never the plan in front of your face. It's always an extra plan. And that's another reason why Malazan is so good. It's just like, you can be like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. They got this plan. And nope, the plan is always just ridiculously crazier. And also just Calanfit and Dancer realizing that in order to just to get to their goal of mapping the Azath and figuring things out, they would need to live longer and essentially become at least ascendants, if not gods. Kind of voluntarily choosing to lose the Tlanimas when they actually became the rulers of Shadow. And so anyway, just so many insane things going on. I love this book is just so good. One of the things that when I first read this, at the very end, this is getting into definite major spoilers. At the very end, I thought it jumped a little too quickly without explaining things to that ending part. And so we get the end when the Bone Hunters have returned to the Malazan Empire. They're back, and then they kind of have returned to this people that are against them, that hate them, that are ready to just push them back out and leave them high and dry, even though they just fought for how many years, how long to fight for the Malazan Empire. And they get back. I just felt like, I remember the first time reading it going, was that really set up? Was that like, it just kind of felt like it just jumped right to it. I realize now after reading it, again, for the second time, that I was definitely wrong. And this is one of those where I can definitely put it to, I didn't know what was going on, right? It's a Malazan book. You even on a first, especially on a first read through of everything, but even 6 books into the first read through, you're still like, I don't know, you need at least a little bit longer than that. I still loved it, so there wasn't any issues with me loving it. It just, I felt like I definitely missed parts where Malik Rel is clearly making his way and worming his way into the whole power structure of the empire and all that, and seeding these kind of rumors and things, and it's definitely laid in here, and I just missed it the first time. So I'm glad to have reread it and go, okay, the one thing that I thought was not quite well done was insanely well done, actually, and I just missed it. Happy to be wrong. Some of the characters, they're either beloved or hated, but one of them that I love is Iskarl Pust. I love him, and I love him later on when he gets to go up against Croup. It's just one of the best things ever, but that's not in this book. Sorry if I spoiled anything. I don't think I spoiled anything big. One of my favorite, he has a lot of good quotes in this, as Iskarl Pust does. Iskarl Pust, if you know him, he's crazy, but in a good way, I guess, for Shadow's purposes at least. Nuts, talks to himself as if he's just thinking, but it speaks it out loud. So, but the question is whether it's intentional or not, and you're kind of like, there's no way it's intentional until later on when you're like, was it intentional? What? Anyway, despite his crazy nonsense, he's still very clever. But anyway, he's got this. He's insane. So he's in a fight with a mule that is his mule, and he thinks I will hit him, strike him with a large stick. Foolish mule. Oh no, I am much more cunning. I will surprise him with kindness until he grows calm and dispenses with all watchfulness, and then, I shall punch him in the nose. Won't he be surprised? No mule can match wits with me. Oh yes, many have tried, and almost all have failed. Oh man, I couldn't read it with a straight face. The almost all have failed is just so great. Anyway, I love it. Iskarl Pust, come on, how can you not love him? Maybe I need to do a defense of Iskarl Pust video. But just one of my favorite quotes from the series, a little more serious, because I love I love the humorous characters. I love the funny moments in this series. It cracks me up, but obviously the emotions too and everything. But anyway, one of these good ones is discipline is as much facing the enemy within as the enemy before you. One of the big parts, especially in Egatan, that big chapter I mentioned earlier, that I just thought was really, really well done, is you're playing the kind of the bad guys versus the good guys, and there's really nothing of that in the Malazan world. You see these people fighting and you go, I'm rooting for them, I like them, and then you see their enemy and get into their heads and whatnot, and you go, I like them, I'm rooting for them, what is going on? So there's really not a lot of that, but you can see some of the bad things that happen, and you kind of, I don't know. Overall, I guess, especially in this one, I'm rooting for the Malazans, but you just see, like, one of the great ones is here. So Laelman of the Flails is kind of the leader of Shaik's kind of whatever's left over. And then you've got Korab Bilan Thenualas, who's with him, is kind of like second in command, and they go into Egatan, and they've got this crazy setup for the Malazans, and the Malazans obviously get there, and it's just this great kind of progression where Korab is so dedicated to Laelman of the Flails. He's his number one guy. He'll do it. Yes sir, everything is, he's the guy. He's almost like a deity to Korab, and everything he does is perfect. Until he realizes this plan at Egatan is to essentially burn the Malazans to death and just destroy them, possibly their own people, but as long as we got the Malazans, we're good. And you just kind of see his like twisting and thinking, if only the world right now could take a look at what's going on and maybe like think from the other side and have a look at it, we'd maybe be in a better place here. But just his thinking and his realizations through this as he meets then the Malazans and understands that they're people, they're soldiers just like me, they're doing what they're told. He changes from this like worshipful attitude to this kind of more realistic, okay, this is how life is going. This is who we're up against here. Just insanely powerful how the Bonehunters just twist and and kind of become this other thing. So much more information in this book. Of course, and then this whole scene right here, we've got Perrin and the other realms and whatnot and the crazy like zombies. Then you got that alongside everything. There's just so much going on. I love this series, but right now, the Bonehunters is the best. Prove me wrong, okay? All right, why am I wrong? All right, anyway, thank you so much for coming to Shelf Centered. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really just helps the channel. Obviously, don't do it if you don't like this stuff or it's not something you want to keep bugging you with. So I cannot thank you enough. Take care. Bye. I'm Korab.